What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be reviewing these 3 ND filters, and we're going to be discussing if these filters are even worth your attention. So to put a proper test onto all of these filters, I came out to a local lake and I decided to shoot just a very generic and open area that we can see the differences that the ND filter makes versus with no ND filter. So the first thing that I thought when I got these filters is that the cases were really nice. They fit in my bag nicely. I don't have any worries about these filters getting damaged or something like that while they're in travel, especially in these hard plastic cases. The one thing that I did find about these cases though that was a little bit annoying is the fact that you can't really tell each case from each other. So that's why I just put a little piece of tape labeling what the actual filter was in the top corner. Otherwise, I'd be searching through my bag and I'd have no idea what's going on. Now, this is my first time using Nisi filters, so it actually has been a really interesting learning experience comparing the filters that I previously used versus these filters that I'm using today. So in this video, we're not going to be necessarily going into the different types of ND filters, what ND filters do and all that stuff, because if you're watching this video, you probably already know that stuff. But if you do have any questions about ND filters, I'll leave a link down in the description below, linking to my blog, where I share a whole bunch of stuff about ND filters, as well as a couple videos that can help you to use ND filters within your photography. So when we're comparing ND filters, or we're wondering if an ND filter is good or not, we're looking at a couple of different things, and those 3 things break down to ergonomics. So how well does it handle? Is it easy to use, easy to take on and off your camera? Is it a pain in the butt when you're trying to just be quick and in and out of a location? That kind of thing. Number 2 is color cast, and this is probably the most important thing and most notable thing about different ND filters, is depending on the ND filter that you're using, they're going to have a little bit of a different color shift and color cast on your image. So that just means that when your camera is looking through that ND filter, it's going to have a little bit of a color shift. So it might be a little warmer, it might be a little cooler, it might be a little bit more magenta, that kind of thing. And then number 3 on our list is sharpness. So we want to make sure that the ND filter actually has a nice quality glass to it, so it still maintains the sharpness and the quality of our lens that we are putting it on. Alright, so now I'm back home, I'm at the computer, and I've just imported all of my photos from today, comparing all the different filters into Lightroom. So now we can hop into Lightroom and start to compare what all the different photos ended up looking like. Okay, so now we're in Lightroom and I have a couple different images here that we can go through and look at the differences between with filters and without filters. So for all of these photos, I had the exact same settings. The only thing that I was changing is the shutter speed. I had the exact same aperture, I had the exact same ISO, and the exact same white balance. Everything between each image in terms of what's happening in the camera is exactly the same. The only difference is that we're adding a filter over top of our photo. So of course, these ND filters are doing what ND filters do best, and that is just smoothing out the water, as we see here. So that's not really anything that we're going to talk about or review, because it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's darkening our image so that we are able to open up our shutter speed and create long exposures. Now, like I had mentioned earlier, the things that we always need to look for in filters is the color cast, because between varying brands of filters, and especially depending on the quality of the filter, that color cast is going to change immensely. So in this photo, if I just show you the settings here, this was shot at 13 seconds at f8, ISO 100. And zooming in, everything looks extremely sharp, nothing that looks out of the ordinary. This is exactly what all my images will look like if I'm shooting with this Canon 24-70 f2.8. Having the filter added onto the end of our lens did not degrade the image in any way. Now going into color cast, between all the filters that I've used in the past personally, this is by far the best outcome that I have seen for an ND filter. There is such little color cast here. So this is the raw photo of the image. I've not done any editing to this. So now let's go and compare this to the no filtration version of this. This is what no filtration looks like. So let's just go back and forth a few times so you can really start to see the difference. So what you have probably noticed is that with our filter, it is substantially more magenta than with no filtration at all. Now, if I go to the other images, this is also a reoccurring thing. So it seems to be that all of these ND filters have a little bit of a purple magenta hue to them. So that's the color cast that they give off. Now, compared to other ND filters, this is by no means that bad because we can just go up here to our tint and we can just correct it just by adding a little bit of green to our photo. And now you can see the colors in the overall image in the no filtration versus the filtration is pretty close to the same. Now going over to this image here is where we really see the humongous advantage to having an ND filter and a polarizer all in one filter. So again, we're going to be expecting the same sort of differences in color cast, but we're going to be just looking at the quality of how the polarizer has helped our image with the ND in this scenario. So this is our no filtration straight out of camera image. Now this is the version with the 6-stop ND filter and polarizer in one. So in this case, I purposely threw off the polarizer just so we're only seeing what the ND is doing. And then now I adjusted the polarizer so it's taking away the glare on the water and a little bit on this shack here. So now this is when the polarizer is now active. As you can see here, the reflection of the sky is so much better exposed. It's not blown out like it is in this image here. And likewise, just some of the railings and the trail and whatnot have such a better exposure all in one image just because of using the polarizer. So if we look up at the settings here, and I go back and forth between the two images, they're the exact same settings. The only difference is that the polarizer is being activated on the problem areas in our image. Now there are, of course, other filter systems out there where you can have your ND filter and then a separate polarizing filter all in one. But what I think is super awesome about this particular filter is the fact that I can have my ND filter and a polarizer in one filter. There's not a whole bunch of extra steps to it. It's just one filter that I have to screw onto the end of the lens, and then everything is good to go. And then likewise, 6 stops is a really nice density to have because it's not too overkill, but you can also be shooting some nice long exposures with it at almost any time of day. Now going into another example of the color cast that you find with these filters, and then also how we can utilize the polarizer, is a few sets of images that we have here. So this image is with no filtration, it's straight out of camera, a bare lens. This is with filtration with the ND64 and circular polarizer. Of course, the polarizer is not active at this point. And then now, once we activate the polarizer, this is what our image becomes. So again, this is not any kind of special photo by any means, but it really does showcase how we can get that long exposure look as we see in the reflection of the trees, but then we're getting rid of the glare that we see in the water in the previous photo. So this is just another reason why I think this ND64 and polarizer in one combo is so awesome. Now, after I shot this photo, I was curious because of such a clear color cast on the water. I was wondering how that was going to compare between filter to filter. So I decided to throw on the ND8 filter, which is only 3 stops. And so this is the image that we came out with that. As you noticed, it looks a little bit different because there is no polarizer, but in terms of color cast, it has a very similar bluish magenta that it throws onto the photo. But like I said, that personally doesn't really bother me too much because I think no matter what ND filter you're going to get, there is going to be a little bit of color cast in one direction or another. For me, these Nisi filters have proven to have such little and minor bits of color cast. Like everything is a little bit more magenta, but it's really just a few points down in your tint and everything seems to be going back to normal. There's nothing too over the top in blue or yellow or whatever it might be as there is in other filters. Now with that being said, the quality that these filters are and the lack of color cast that they are giving off, I really think that this price point is totally fair for what these filters are. Okay, so now the big question, do I recommend these filters? Sitting around in the $150 range, they are a little bit more expensive, but with that being said, these filters are professional level filters, so you are paying for what you get. The thing with ND filters is that when you get a cheaper filter, you start to run into issues with color cast where there's an insane amount of color cast that you will constantly have to correct, or sometimes you can't even correct it at all, it's so bad. Then also, the cheaper the ND filter, the lower the quality and the lower the sharpness that filter will be able to produce versus the lens that you're putting it on. Now that we have looked at the image results with the filters on the camera, I can't say that there's any lack in sharpness or detail there because of the Nisi filters. Everything looks really crisp and there's hardly any color cast. The only thing with the Nisi filters is there was a little bit of magenta that we found, but that can be easily corrected just with our color temperature sliders. In terms of other ND filters on the market, these Nisi filters have the least amount of color cast that I have personally seen. So all in all, yes, they are a little bit of an investment, sitting at about $150. Think of filters for your camera as a long-term investment. But with that being said, we are getting exactly what we pay for with Nisi filters. So I'm going to be leaving a link down in the description below of all the filters that I use today, as well as their equivalents in the 100mm version, if you're more into that. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review on Nisi circular NDs. I learned a lot about this experience, and I hope you did too. Let me know down in the comments below if there's any other type of camera gear or product that you would love to see a review on. And likewise, if you have any questions about which ND filter might be the best for you, go ahead and hit the link down in the description below, which will take you right to a blog post of mine sharing everything you need to know about picking the right ND filter for you. Anyways, guys, my name is Brendan from BeWellCreative.com, and I hope to catch you back here next time.